Hi, I'm Katie Darby Mullins. You might remember me from such catastrophes as, I'm the Writing Center director now? And what about that coronavirus, huh? I'm really hoping in a couple of years that last one's funny, but as I'm filming this in September 2020, guys, wow. So we've been on some really fun adventures together so far. Like moving the entire writing center offline and making it a paper-based system, and then being kicked off of campus for a worldwide virus, and bringing it all back online with a very technologically incompetent person at the helm. It's been fun. I've actually learned a lot, and one of those things is that we're all going to make some mistakes, so we want to be generous and graceful with each other while we do this. I'm making this video in part because training is really complicated, and that's when we can all get together in the same room. And it's because nobody can get together in the same room all at the same time, ever. I've learned that. So what I want to do with this video is talk a little bit about what your job as a writing tutor actually is. And then there will be another video that briefly discusses the technology we'll be using. However, we don't actually have a video of what it will look like from your end yet. I'm hoping that once everything's up and running, I'm able to trick at least one student into coming in so I can tape one of those videos as well. However, I think that for the most part, this is going to be relatively painless. And notice I say relatively, but again, that's because we're going to be kind, compassionate, and graceful with each other. That's going to be the goal here. So, what does a college writing center do? Primarily, people immediately hear writing center and think, fix my commas. And what we do couldn't be further than the truth. We will see things like systemic comma errors, and it's fine to say, hey, you might want to look up this resource on commas, or, you know, I don't think semicolons are working here for you. Maybe just don't ever use semicolons. That's a thing I say to a lot of my classes, actually. Just stop using semicolons completely. But your goal is not actually to be the world's best grammarian. So if you feel weird because you made a B in copy editing, don't. In fact, several people I've hired didn't take copy editing because I think it's more important to have people from across campus than it is to bring in a bunch of writing majors. Not because I don't have a special place in my heart for the writing majors. You know I like you best. You guys are mine. But because I actually think it's really important that we learn from each other. And every major, every class, every different school has its own strength, right? And one of the things that I have found to be the greatest strength in any writing center is making someone a better thinker, not a better writer. You come to college to learn three things primarily: critical writing, critical reading, and critical thinking. Unfortunately, the third one is the hardest to teach and the only thing that makes the first two possible. So, how do we create critical thinkers? Basically, if you are here, you're somebody who is intelligent enough that you make connections in your brain fast enough that you sometimes maybe skip a step when you're telling a story, right? You go from A to C, maybe A to Z. Sometimes I have been accused of that myself. And in fact, there will probably be holes in this video and some places where I have to double back and tell the same story for that reason. But you remember how frustrating it was when you were in math classes and you just learned how to do complex math and you learned how to skip steps and still get to the right answer, and your professor still made you write every single step down, and you cursed them and said, when am I ever going to need this in real life? And calculus is very stupid, and I know that might just be me, but I probably have several math majors on here. I think your major is great and terrifying. That said, I think it's also essential to note that later, when we got into even more complex math, all those steps we could skip became important again, because you need to be able to trace back what the thought line is, right? Well, start thinking of papers like complex math. Yeah, you've got a thesis, but does that thesis say anything? And sure, you've got points that back that thesis up, but how do they connect? And yeah, you've got some sources, but Do they make any sense? And did you pull relevant quotes? So a couple of things that you can start thinking about for your job at the Writing Center is that you're really there to facilitate thought as much as you are writing. And you're also there to ask questions. More of your job will be spent asking, okay, how does that connect back to your point? Or how does this research prove what you're saying? Or even, where did you get this? How do you know this source is unbiased? Or if it is biased, why don't you admit that somewhere? Because if you're comfortable using the research, even though you know it's a biased source, there's got to be a reason that it's still valuable. Okay, that sounds really complicated, but it's not. It's going to become second nature for you very quickly. It's also going to make you a lot more annoying to watch movies with because you're going to start catching plot holes fast. Your friends are going to hate this. I can't wait. So as much fun as it is for me to explain it that way, a metaphor I like to use when I'm talking about how to write a paper and not skip steps is how to make a peanut butter sandwich, which is easy, right? You get bread, you get peanut butter, boom, you make a sandwich. Well, yeah, we all know how to do that. We've been doing it forever, right? But I didn't really give you any instructions. So as far as I know, you're all at home taking pieces of bread that you have acquired from God knows where and slamming them into the lids of peanut butter jars. Or if you were smart enough to take the lid off, just dunking it right in that. You know what? That might be more efficient. I'm off track. What you want to do is convince people that it's essential that they not just say, get bread and peanut butter and make a sandwich. And they start saying things like, okay, so you take the bread out of the bag and then you take the lid off of the peanut butter and you get a knife and you spread it on the bread before you put the two pieces of bread together. That's how good ideas are communicated. And you want 3 things to be emphasized as a Writing Center tutor: clarity, concision, and communication. The concision's really hard for me. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't ever been concise in anything. I've already talked more in this video than I think most of you will talk at some of your appointments, and that is absolutely fine. Some of these appointments will be pretty quick, but again, I really don't want the emphasis to be on grammar. Now, we're going to have students who come in a little nervous and a little gun-shy, and that's for several reasons. First, some of them will be first-generation students or students from outside the country, and they'll be afraid that you're going to judge their writing based on grammar. I cannot tell you how essential it is that you not do that. They're either writing with an accent or they're doing the best they can with what a very limited school background can give them. Most people are taught to write the 5-paragraph essay for tests. I don't want you to teach that. I want you to teach them that they have a point of view and that even on things where it's not an opinion paper, their point of view is different and valid. That's even if you disagree with them. You have to be completely neutral in these appointments, and you have to just ask questions that verify that they are studying, that they are looking for information, and that whether you agree with them or not, they can back their ideas up. That's what the essential thing is. Not commas, not semicolons. That doesn't mean you shouldn't bone up on that stuff. I recommend the Oatmeal. It's a great resource. Their thing on semicolons is hilarious. It's got an equally good resource on commas, and boy, if you want to look at misspellings, that's the best website for it. Hyperbole and a Half by Ali Broche has a great thing about the word a lot too. Spoiler alert, it's not one word, but she makes that abundantly clear. So I recommend things like that as resources, not just for you, as a fun way to study and feel a little bit more confident, but for students. If you see that they're having systemic semicolon problems, don't say, well, go to the Purdue OWL, which, by the way, is what I'm going to tell them, right? You don't say that. You say, okay, I've got this fun website that'll show you how to do it. It'll make you more likable. It'll make them more comfortable. Everybody wins. This is about making friends and influencing people. I'm kidding. This is about a very low wage and learning something about yourself anyway. So this will be fun. But remember that that's the attitude you have to bring into it too, or it won't be. So again, the concision thing, I'm really failing here. That is not my job anymore. So, good news, I'm still rocking this. Another thing I want you to think about as you go into these appointments is that because some people will be insecure and scared of writing, they might get defensive. A very good way to diffuse that is questions or looking for small things to compliment and say, okay, I see here you say this or that, and that's something I wouldn't have thought of. Do you know how often it is that people get told they had an original idea? Almost never. That is a way in with even the most defensive student usually. All right, so what do you actually do as a Writing Center tutor? If this is September 2020, which right now it literally is, you're going to be following, I hope, a slightly different set of instructions. Because normally people come into the Writing Center, they bring you paper, you go over it together. None of that. Writing Center is off limits right now because I care about your health, the health of your family, and I care about our other students' health as well. So you will be using mywconline.com, mywritingcenteronline.com, and I'll be sending out the link and hopefully making it a little easier to access on the Writing Center website as well. People will be signing up through there, and you need to actually be logged in for your entire shift, whether it says you have an appointment or not. Usually people will sign up for appointments in advance, and you will know going in, this is the person I'm meeting with, this is what subject, things like that. That said, people can drop in at any time. So when we were in an office, it was a little easier for me to keep track of who was in the office. Obviously, there's a little more trust involved here, but not as much as you'd think, because I get emails like, hey, I dropped in to see so-and-so and no one was there. Guess what? I'm gonna react to that email. So when people drop in, they need to see you there. But being on camera for 3 hours, especially in silence, is miserable. Honestly, being on camera for this 20 minutes or whatever is miserable, and I hate every moment of it, and I have purpose here. So what are some things you can do? Homework, watch TV, cover up your camera. You know, all of those things are fine because when someone logs in, it will alert you. But do be online. Be ready to go. Be ready to meet with someone at any time. But that doesn't mean you have to take an appointment if the student comes and they're unprepared, or if the student in any way insults you, says anything off color. You're not going to shock me with things that happen. But if something negative does happen at an appointment, feel free to shut it down and then come to me immediately. That is a time where I'm going to want you to text me. You'll all have my phone number. It'll be in the big Writing Center email chain, and I'd program that in your phone as soon as possible. Make sure that you text me immediately if something happens at an appointment and you have to end it. I will go to bat for you, and former tutors can tell you that's true. I have rejected clients. I've also fired tutors. Both sides, it's completely inappropriate to do and say some things. And I really, really want you to know that I am on your side anytime you feel threatened because of who you are, whether it's racism, sexism, gender-based, or even just hateful comments. That's not allowed. So come to me with that. Unfortunately, last semester we learned sometimes this applies to people even who aren't at the Writing Center. Please email me if you get a response from a professor that is anything less than professional, and forward that response along to me. I will take care of that. You don't need to deal with that at all, past a point. So what does this mean for the student? What do they need to bring to the table? Well, first, they need to bring their paper in. If they don't, they might be there just to talk about ideas or their thesis, or to just kind of get ready to write a paper. That's completely appropriate as long as they've told you that that's what they want to do. It is not appropriate for them to say, okay, let's write a paper together. No. You just say no. You can say, you know, let's get your ideas going. What do you want to write about? Well, how do you feel about that topic? Well, where do you think you would research that? All of that is a fine way to run that appointment. Don't go sentence for sentence with them, though. You don't want to use this as an opportunity to get them a higher grade on a paper. You want to turn them into a better writer. Sometimes you actually take steps backwards while you're learning to write. That's okay. This is not a grade center. It's a writing center. And your job isn't to get their GPA up. It's to give them a new resource that helps them in the future, not just right this second. They also need to bring the prompt. Now, this one's tricky. Sometimes they're going to say, my professor didn't give me a prompt, and you have to trust them on that. You very well may get an email from the professor saying, this isn't on prompt. Why didn't you help them with what the prompt was? Well, guys, there's nothing you can do about that. And as long as you just say, yeah, they didn't bring the prompt in, you're safe on that. And again, I'll go to bat for you if I have to, but I shouldn't have to. Most professors kind of know to roll their eyes and be frustrated at that at this point. The other thing is the student might be telling the truth. I very often don't give prompts. I'm a creative writing professor. I feel like sometimes it stifles what I want my students to do if I give them a prompt. I often give a list of 10 possible prompts, the last one being, of course, you could write about literally anything else as well. That said, we're also not taking creative assignments. We're looking at technical and academic writing. And so if somebody brings in a poem, that's just a hard no. You do not look at poems. And you might want to say, hey, ask your professor, go to your professor about that. I can say that I'm a creative writing professor. All of us would rather you send that person right back to us. Another thing that I would like to kind of address just really quickly is the idea of plagiarism. Plagiarism is an incredibly frustrating subject in a writing center because you have no real way of knowing if it's happening. But you have a couple of ways of knowing if it's happening. And if it is, it'd be great if you either helped the student realize it was plagiarism, especially if you think it's unintentional, or emailed me immediately after the session and let me deal with it. I'm kind of an expert at this. So if you have somebody mentioning a quotation, but there are no quotation marks and no attribution, you might gently suggest, hey, that's not how we cite things academically. You're going to want to put that in MLA format or APA format. And you don't have to show them how to do that, but if you're feeling really generous, you can. It's not that hard. It takes 5 minutes, and you'll be teaching somebody a very valuable skill that'll keep them out of trouble for the rest of their life. Very few people plagiarize intentionally. However, let's play a game called Here Are Two Things That Really Happened to Katie at some point. Maybe somebody left the Wikipedia hyperlinks in their paper. Or maybe when you asked them what their paper was about, they said the War of 1812, but the paper was about the legalization of pot. Both of those cases are egregious examples of plagiarism. You just nope out of that appointment and email me immediately. Now here's the thing. You can let them turn it in and get a 0 and maybe get suspended. And all of that could happen even if we don't let them turn it in and suffer the consequences themselves. But the fact of the matter is, all of that's above your pay grade. That's something you elevate to me. That is way not your problem. So if you're getting hyperlinks, or if you're getting just, wow, that is not what the paper is about, email me. Let me take care of it. Don't worry about it. Don't take the fall. Don't engage. That's a situation in which somebody might get contentious. And even though we won't be face-to-face in the fall 2020 semester, you will eventually be face-to-face because I plan on using this video ad infinitum because I do not want to make another video. But I think it's essential to kind of note that we don't want you to ever be in a situation where you feel unsafe, especially when it's something that I can take care of for you. All right, so my email is kd60@evansville.edu. You can reply to that giant Writing Center thread at any time to reach all tutors. If you need to replace your hour at some time, if you're not going to be able to make a shift and you need to cover it, that's where you email. But for the most part, this is a really fun gig. It's a good way to just kind of enjoy talking about academic ideas with students you might not have met otherwise. It's a good way to help introduce people to college. It's a nice way to really hone your own skills in critical thinking and critical reading, because you have to be able to read and ask questions before you can help anyone write. I have great faith in you, or you wouldn't have this job. That's a pretty good start. You should feel pretty confident going in. I'm already proud, and I know you guys are going to do a lot to make me proud. So, kind of my last thing, I'm going to send you a couple of outdated but easy to read and quick PDFs on pedagogy, especially with either first-year college students or people who write with an accent. And I'm also going to tell you your first couple appointments are going to be awkward. We're all still learning how to do this face-to-face on mywritingcenter.com thing. It might not always work. You might have to move to Zoom at some point. Some of you may take FaceTime appointments. You might move to Google Duo. Is it ideal? Probably not. But we're not shooting for ideal this semester. Really, any semester. We're not shooting for perfect. Right now, we're shooting for everybody learning and getting better together. And that's not going to change, even when we move back into the Writing Center and everything's face-to-face. If that ever happens. If in 2025 you guys are laughing at that line, boy, I'm going to feel like a sucker. But I feel like this semester especially, we need to take perfection out of our language, and we just need to strive for getting better at all times. I believe in you. I believe in the Writing Center. So, thanks for watching this video. There will be a brief one on technology. Do me a favor, email me something about this video. Maybe a stupid thing I said, or a bad example I gave, something I missed and didn't cover. And that way, I'll know you actually watched it. Again, that email, kd60, D as in Darby, my maiden name, @evansville.edu. And thanks, soldiers. See you later.